And welcome. My name is Letty Johnson, and I am here tonight with good grief, good gossip, and good God. And I have my wonderful co-host in the person of Gwendolyn.
Hello, we are so glad that you are joining us today.
And we also have the ever fabulous Miss Betty Baye.
Well, hello, and welcome to G3. And we're going to be talking about book clubs. And our special guest tonight is a friend of mine, a friend of this church, a member of this church, in the person of Deanna Tinsley, a former assistant superintendent of the Jefferson County Public Schools. But why she's here tonight is because she is an avid reader and an avid book club person. We've been in the same book club for almost 20 years now. So Deanna, welcome to G3. And book clubs, let me tell you, they are so fabulous and they range the gamut. And book clubs are really a way that, particularly for black women, we socialize. Book club becomes a way for us, if the book is not good, especially if it's not that good, we will then talk about the book for 5 minutes and then we talk about everything else.
Oh, okay.
But really, there are so many books. And like sometimes there are books that I don't particularly like this book. But by the time the book club people keep discussing it, I realized that there's something in the book that I didn't notice or I didn't get or anything. So whenever our book club is very democratic, and we go from very deep to very light. And when it gets to be toward the holidays, they we don't want to read nothing heavy right now because we cooking turkeys and whatever we're doing. So we go a little bit lighter during the holidays. But our book club is called the Zora Neale Hurston Reader Circle.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It started out as the Afrocentric Reader Circle. And it was really Deanna who said at some point after we were in for a while that we ought to expand our horizons. Yeah. So now the Zoras, we read books from all over the world. We're reading now about Punjabi women, but we've been everywhere. So Deanna, talk about your process even when you're thinking about suggesting a book to the club.
Interesting question because there's no real process. It's, hey, I like this book, I think you'll like it too. Let me talk a little bit about the Zoras and another book club that I was in called the Mayor's Book Club. Mm-hmm. At one time, our current mayor's wife decided that she wanted a book club to be held at the main library. And so I decided, along with Zora's, that I wanted to see what the other folk were reading. Mm-hmm. So I was the only one. And that was good. That was good because
other folk
I was the only one for a long time. And then, who joined us? Our great friend Pat Beckett.
Oh, Pat.
Pat Beckett was one of the most wonderful members of the Zoras, and she passed a couple of years ago, so we really miss her.
Yeah.
So after a while, there were two of us. What was interesting there is that their perspectives were not a whole lot different from ours. They read some of the same books that we read, and the only thing about Zora's is that, man, we could get off track. We could read a book, and then if something was going on in the community or in the world, we would have to talk about that. And then we'd have to relate how our families did whatever they did, related to whatever was in the book. That didn't happen in the other group. They were very strict about what we read. I have loved Zora's for 20 plus years because it's open to everybody. You don't have to be a member of anything. You could come in and for one session and not the next one. You could even not read the book. But just come in and listen and even give input on what we talked about after.
So anyone can participate in the Zoras. How do they find you all? Is there a Facebook page or a website, or they just reach out to you, Miss Betty? And how does this work?
It's been word of mouth for the most part. And since we've been on Zoom for the past 2 years, we've had people come in who, just are people who know us or have heard about us.
So you guys have been doing this on Zoom?
Oh, that's a great idea. I don't know if I'm ever going to get them back in the bookstore because everybody's so comfortable now from home. It's like, oh God, I got to come out. So I'm glad I got Deanna to come out tonight.
Absolutely, I understand that.
And what is the age group? I mean, what is the age group? What does the book selection look like?
I may be the oldest in the group right now. It ranges, I think, maybe from 50s on.
There's some 40s. Moniece and some of them a
Is
little
she
bit
in the
younger.
40s? Okay, and I'm not going to tell, but I'm the oldest. But you talked about what kind of books. So I made a list of categories because I thought it would be interesting just to see the range of the reading that we've done. And for instance, I said, okay, what did we read the most of? And it looks like international authors.
Wow.
We're looking at books like Infidel, Born a Crime, Cry the Beloved Country, and then classic African American authors. Of course, their eyes were watching God, Zora Neale Hurston.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kindred, Octavia Butler, The Bluest Eye, a lot about, now Toni Morrison.
We love.
Yes.
Oh, what
One of
can
my
we say
favorites.
about
Oh,
Toni
yes.
Morrison?
One of everybody's
Toni is
favorites, I
deep.
think,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
Toni is deep. You have to see
Yes.
all of the things. But see, we had classic books. At first, we only did like books by African Americans. That's how the club started. So we started out with Zora Neale Hurston, and we've done James Baldwin. We've done everybody. But then we said Zora Neale Hurston was an anthropologist, and she was interested in culture.
That's right.
So then we wanted to do other cultures. And you remember our first book, Deanna, that we went out on?
No.
The Red Tent.
The Red Tent, Diamond. Anita
Diamond. Yeah.
Yeah.
But tell them about the Red Tent because it sort of relates to church. You remember? It was Jacob and Jacob's wives.
I have read so
Well,
many
now
books.
this is a long time ago,
Yeah.
but it was a place for women.
Yeah,
the
the
Red
Red
Tent
Tent.
was for women, and this is where babies were born. This is where they talked to one another. If they had had books, it would have been a book club.
Yeah.
It was a
Okay.
place just for them. And then, birth happened. And so it was a beautiful story by her. In fact, I think I saw a Red Tent in my travels once.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I think that still exists, that kind of separation of the women and their own way of dealing with each other and their issues.
And maybe that's where what's her name got her idea for the Red Table Talk. It might
Yeah,
it
it
might
could
have
have been.
stemmed from the
Could've
Red
been.
Tent.
Absolutely.
Because the
That
Red
would
Tent
make
was where the
sense.
women, and this was based on Jacob and his wives and Leah and the other women. And then we went to China. We go around the world.
We go
don't
around the world.
without getting
That's
on a
what I was
plane.
looking. I thought when I was just getting some titles today. Like we've been to Somalia with Infidel, South Africa a lot, Cry the Beloved Country, Haiti with Edwidge Endicott,
Dandicott, yeah.
Afghanistan, The Kite Runner.
A Thousand Splendid Suns, we did.
We even did a graphic novel, Persepolis. Remember that one?
Oh yeah, I didn't get that. That was one that was above my head. They go deep. They go deep.
We'll have to make sure that we share some of these at the end of the episode
Yeah.
so that others can check these out and read some, because there are so many that you're reading right now that I'm like, ooh, I would love to know
Yeah.
more about this book. I do have one question for you. So once you select a book, is that when you determine how long it takes you to read the book, or is it always a set time frame for each book?
It's a
and
month.
Each time that
One
you
month.
So 1 month.
'Cause we
regardless of the
met
book.
And we do
monthly.
months ahead. Like
Okay.
we have picked our books all the way into February.
Oh my goodness, that's a great idea,
Yeah.
because you can keep
Yeah,
your
and see,
own
some
pace a
people
little
like
bit with how you
Deanna, they
read.
read fast. And then Deanna tell them, you don't just read, you have the other methodologies. She likes the Kindle, and I like
And
books,
the books
to
on,
touch the book.
on
Go ahead.
tape and things like
And
that.
you listen
A
on
lot
tape.
of us have gone to the e-readers.
Yes.
Because, like, for instance, late at night, if I don't want to turn the light on, I have the thing is backlit and I can read in bed. And I like audio tapes. I like tapes in the car. So sometimes I'm reading the book and listening to it at the same time. And a lot of us do that now. I think there are just other ways to get to literature now, thank goodness. Another thing, I don't collect books anymore. In fact, I sold hundreds of books or gave them away because I need to downsize. So that means that I'm doing more on the e-reader than I used to do.
How often do you go back and reread a book? Or what draws you? What is the attraction to the particular book you select?
Has to be a good one. It has to be a good one.
No,
to
that's right.
reread it. It has to be usually a classic, something, maybe a James Baldwin piece that I read a long time ago.
Have you read reread a book recently or lately? Is there one that sticks in mind?
Yeah, I read it. I can't think of the name of it though, but it was about. I know what it was about, and I didn't know I was rereading it
Okay.
until.
Now this is bad.
You know, this is bad when you read and you think, now I remember there's something about that's familiar. But it was a slave story. And for a while we were reading lots and lots of stories about slavery and about the South and about the Caribbean. And they can be depressing.
Well,
But they can also be very informative. And so when I was reading this book and got to this really horrible part, that's when I said, I've read this book and I need to quit. Yeah.
Well, when you say that, the first thing that popped in my mind was back in the day when we were slaves and we were not allowed to read. So I feel like having African American women or women of color who are gathering together to read and to embrace something that for so long we were not allowed to do is beautiful. It's kind of like you're saying that reading is not like a job or a duty or a task. It's a gift, and that gift is to be utilized every day, and to be shared with people that you love and with people you have a common interest with. So I love the whole concept of a book club, and especially with sisters.
Well, you know, when I started the book club in '99, I had a vision too, and my vision was that I was at that time working at the paper, and when you're reading so much stuff for work and you know related to your job, I wanted to read something that was not related to that. So I was looking to do something that would give me a relief. And I just think that book reading gives me a relief. It is like, even when it's tough, when it's about slavery or whatever it is, I feel like I go to another world. I go to another place. And, you know, I remember when I was writing my book, The Africans, my novel, my father was dying, my husband was cutting up, and I said I would rather be in slavery than to be here. So I'm writing this book all about slavery.
Oh my goodness.
That's how I escaped. And I would come back from seeing my dad, and then I would write to like 3 o'clock because I wanted to be someplace else.
Yes.
And the thing about book clubs, if you're not able to travel, if you're unable to do that, you can go to some other place and without leaving your house.
It's like living 1,000 lives in 1,000 different places without ever having to leave the comfort of your home.
Well, one of the things I'm really proud of as a Baptist Christian is that the church was so instrumental in helping freed slaves realize the absolute critical need for education. They treasured getting an education, even if they only had the Bible. And they used that Bible as their first book. Many of the preachers of that generation were the ones who were not only the pastor of the local church, but the principal or the teacher of the little school. And the school may have been in the church facility. So this natural relationship, critical relationship, church and community, Word of God, and learning to improve the status of the people that God created in His image, how marvelous it is to think about we come out of that tradition. I confess that I get very frustrated with young people who don't want to go to school, don't want to prepare themselves, because I think about the price that those persons paid in order to crack open the door for education. When I think about what it has done for so many African Americans to break those barriers and to become the leaders of our nation and leaders in their community, the need for a historically black college is so critical, to reach into this community and let black men and women actually have a chance to break out of systemic poverty. And I can see how Simmons plays such a critical role in exposing to people to so many things that you just obviously think they've been exposed to. They have not. I was a different man. I was a serious, silly boy my freshman year, but when I left there at my senior year, I was a different man. I'm almost embarrassed to think that some of these men and women who were my mentors became angry with me and others who didn't take the great privilege we had to go to a black school and to have these mentors there. I mean, I had professors who were like the first PhDs from prestigious schools, and they dedicated their lives to come to a historically black college to change a whole generation of young blacks, okay? Simmons College comes from that tradition that, you know, a learned people cannot be deceived.
And we are back with G3 and our amazing guest, Miss Deanna. Deanna, we are so excited to have you, and we are going to continue this conversation about the book club. So,
Well, here's the deal. When you talked about the connection between slavery when we could not read, and the fact of the matter is that now some of us can't stop reading.
yes.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out how reading can be meditative. Reading can bring you peace depending
Yes.
on, you know, what you're reading, what your mood is. And we have so many more black authors. When I was growing up, you know, the selection was a little paltry. I mean, and they were
Exactly,
around,
yes.
but we were not, nobody was teaching James Baldwin when I was in
Right,
school.
exactly.
They were there and different people were writing, but we didn't know about it. And so much of what we're experiencing now in our community is a lack of literacy.
Yes.
And it's not that people cannot read at all, but literacy is more than just reading.
Yes.
Literacy to me is a way of life, the way you carry yourself, being literate about the community and
Yes.
all of that.
Educating one another. It's a new form of telling our
Stories, exactly.
Yes.
And everybody can tell it.
Yes.
That's why I love
That's
journaling.
the beauty of it.
I tell people to journal. Everybody's got a story. And the thing is that some of us just write it down.
Yes.
But if we don't write it down, how will people know? We have to let people know that we lived, that our
Yes.
families were here, even if it's something that you just write and you read at the family reunion. Don't worry about being published, but you know, writing
Right.
and reading is good. Deanna, you're a former educator. What do you think about that whole idea? Because you were in the schools. You actually saw what the difference was, you know, with literacy.
Well, as you were talking, I was thinking about the poor kiddos who do finish high school and still aren't interested in reading because they never really caught on to the beauty of it, or they never really learned that it's not hard. Sometimes they seem to get stuck, and if our kids get stuck at about grade 4, it's very hard to bring them back to pleasure reading, let alone reading for academics, because it's then too hard. So I guess we have a job to do as people who like to read, and that is to make sure our little ones like to read. They need to have books in the home, if possible. They need to have trips to the library. They need more than school.
Absolutely.
They need, you know, lots of opportunities to like it.
Yes.
Because then that's what propels us.
Reading cultivates the imagination.
Yes, absolutely.
And I remember growing up in East Harlem, you know, in the projects and the whole thing, and we couldn't afford a lot of books, but I had a library card. And my father was an avid newspaper reader.
Yeah.
And so my father and I, we'd read the paper together, and he would, you know, tell me stories about Jackie Robinson and all this stuff. And I read those books, and I remember the first time I went to Paris, and I saw the Champs-Élysées.
Yes.
I had read about it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was running down the street, and I said, "This is Betty Winston," talking to myself, from East River Projects.
Wonderful.
Come on.
And I am in Paris.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I saw the Eiffel Tower in the books.
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw the monuments, and here I am, and I'm there. You know, I read
Absolutely.
about Africa, and then I go to Egypt. And the next thing I know, I'm on the Nile.
Yes.
You know, and so many times.
I'm here for it,
You
right?
know, I think about my dad, and I'd be traveling. I remember I was cruising down the Nile River in Egypt, and I was saying, Daddy, can you see me? Because my father and I, we used to
Yes.
dream those things
Yes.
together. And my parents never was on an airplane. They never
Oh, my
owned a
goodness.
car. You know,
Wow.
we didn't take vacations except to go see family. So, but they had never seen it. Here I am in these places, you know, in France, when I'm looking at Van Gogh, I'm at the place where Van Gogh was, and Arles, and, you know, and I'm like at the d'Orsay Museum in Paris, I'm seeing these things. I'm in Africa, and I'm at the slave castles.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
These things that are in the book.
And you had knowledge about those things when
From
you saw
reading.
them to know
Before
just how
I ever got
important
there.
it was what you were seeing. So that's phenomenal.
So you went from cultivating imagination into leading into opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Indeed.
It's like I said, and I'm getting emotional because I just think about my father. You know, he went to the 7th grade. He was self-taught, but he loved to read. And my father was blind in one eye. And you know, black people always got nicknames. They call my daddy Blue Eye. But don't even laugh.
Lord.
But my point is that reading was such a part of my life as a
Absolutely,
poor girl.
absolutely.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And my mother went to that segregated school in Maryland, and I remember she would tell me about the poets. And she taught me the words to lift every voice and sing, because they sang it
Yes.
every morning. And then she would recite Paul Laurence Dunbar. You know, all of this stuff. Reading just opens up this
So
world.
many doors, so many
It does.
worlds. Yes.
It
The
does.
whole world. And that's what our book club does. Because I didn't know about the women in Afghanistan and the women in China and the different cultures. And what's that book we read, Deanna, about building a cathedral? I didn't even know I was interested
No,
in
the
that.
pillars of the earth.
The pillars of the earth.
Pillars
I mean,
of the
it is
earth.
400 pages or something.
Oh, my Lord.
I read every word. But when you travel, you see so many cathedrals.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, this book is telling you about how they built it, the time was, how the church, how the, you know, different people ruled. It was fascinating.
Yes.
Well, it's so interesting. You know, we all have different journeys, and that's the beauty of the diversity, you know, of having various perspectives. So for me, reading was about leadership. So literally, I cannot even tell you the earliest age that I recall of hearing that readers are leaders. Right.
yes.
I mean, that was that is
Yes.
it's almost a value
Absolutely.
of who I am as an individual and as a business leader, as a businesswoman, is that leaders are readers.
Yes.
And so, you know, in order to expand upon your leadership, you must be always reading, right?
Yes.
So I am the individual who will be at a basketball game with a book. on the golf course
Yes.
with a book as my husband is playing golf, you know. And so I just as a child, I just remember so many fond memories of, you know,
Absolutely.
of carrying books and being exposed to books. And you talked about the access of, you know, as being, you know, growing up poor, you know, but one thing that could never be taken from us, right, is the knowledge and the
Yes.
access to the library, you know. I could always remember my grandmother just saying, you know, leaders are readers, you know, and she would just say it so casually, right? And who would ever know I would grow up to, you know, to now run a business that's built on books, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You
That's
know, yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
I cannot agree with you more. I think that what we were talking about is when you are young and you are learning to love books, it goes with you all of the days of your life.
That's right.
Now, I was never that into leadership, Miss Letty. I'm just going to tell you flat out. But I loved reading books. Even my friends and I, we would gather together and read one book and pass the book page by page and share reading it. And that was fun for us. I think mainly because we were nosy little girls and we wanted to learn all about all of the places that we had not yet traveled. But little did we know when we got to those places, we would know all all about it.
That's what Betty was saying.
Add to
Well,
the
you know,
excitement.
it's Christmas. I mean, what better gift for children?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm always
Right
giving
now.
a book.
And you know, there's a book now that I've bought for all the kids that I know, and it's the 1619
Yes.
book for children.
Yes. My daughter
So
loves
I'm,
1619
she has it, so I'm
Yes.
recommending that one.
Yes.
I think it's Born of the Water. I think that's the name of the book for young people.
Yes.
So it's a great time to give books, to get, you know, just to encourage.
And you know what is good
Encourage
for the
kids.
kids to also see our little poet laureate, Amanda Gorman.
Oh, my goodness.
You know she's got a new book.
Yeah, she's got a new
She
book.
got a
She
new
was
book.
on this morning, but to see
Fabulous.
her, just how she said, I'm the child of a single mother.
Yes.
But you could see what literacy meant to her, that she had
Absolutely.
the poise at a young age to speak at a presidential inauguration, to
Yes.
give this poetry. And now she's on the cover of magazines and, you know, she's doing all kinds of stuff. But Amanda Gorman is a good introduction for young
Yes.
people.
Oh, yes.
And you know
Sure
what,
is.
as a writer too, I can tell you, everybody can't write everything. I tried to write poetry. My poetry is so awful. Because I really thought that I was trying to be Nikki Giovanni. I was trying to be like everybody else and going, yeah. What you realize is that that was not my personality.
Yes.
And so, like, everybody thinks they can write children's books, don't they, Deanna? Children's books say something about that. Children's books are not easy to write.
No, we have a good
Good
friend, Marie Bradby, for instance, has written some
Marie, our local
really
Marie Bradby.
local artist. Has written some beautiful books, and I'm trying to think of the one that the most recent one was about the Belle of Louisville. And yes, she gets just the perfect illustrator and the perfect words, but it's not easy. It's like, okay, you want to be a brain surgeon, you do have to study. Well, you do have to do some work to be a writer also.
Yes.
It's not easy, but you have to love words and love the story, and it all begins with the story.
Well, when did
I
it start for you, Deanna? When did you
I don't ever
realize?
remember not reading. I just don't ever
Was it
remember
something
not
that
reading.
your family or you just?
We just had books. You know, we were lucky. We had books in the house. We had magazines in the house, and you know, curiosity.
And
just
Deanna's
makes
a
you
part of
want to
that
just
show
you're
clan.
curious. You know,
the very accomplished show clan. That's Deanna's people.
And it was not a bad idea to read, way to spend time. You know, growing
That's
up
right.
is if there's
That's
nothing to
right.
do, and a lot of times you know you have time. The best thing in the world to do when you have nothing to do is read a book.
Isn't that
That's
your
what we
idea?
did.
That's my
Read
idea
a
of vacation,
book.
baby.
Yes.
Laying
Yes,
on a cruise
lay
ship
there
on the
and
deck
read
with
a
a book.
book.
With a
Yes,
good book.
yes.
Well,
Speaking of
I was
good
gonna
books, I was
say.
going to say, I want to start with you, Gwen, and
my
just kind of
goodness.
talk about what is a book that you would recommend or that you would consider to be your favorite?
So I have so many, but right now I will tell you that I have a nephew who is a brilliant writer. He is in his mid-20s and he went to Harvard Business School. He's the kindest guy you could ever meet, and his books are leadership books, Miss Letty. And this particular book that I love is called Wake, Rise, and Smile. And it tells you how to be a productive leader, but a kind leader. His business is called, The Difference Makers. And the difference makers are people who spread kindness and love. So, and that's how he talks about being a business person, that you don't have to be hardcore or mean, angry, or spiteful to become a great business leader. That you can do that. You can lead with kindness and love and still get the job done. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay,
Is Wake,
well, thank
Rise,
you.
and Smile.
Your favorite?
My favorite, well, I don't want to
Okay,
say
well,
favorite,
one of your favorites.
but one of my favorites is Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough.
Oh, yes.
And I recently had the opportunity to be in a master class and learn firsthand from Dennis Kimbrough. But I think that is definitely a key to success. When we talk about cultivating young minds. So Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough is
Wonderful.
at the top of my list.
Yes.
And we have run out of time,
Oh, no.
it appears, but we could talk about a lot more about, and I'll just get mine in. I love
Yes.
Nightingale. That's a book that we did
beautiful story.
about the Holocaust and about
Oh,
in
yes.
France and this woman who was the Nightingale, it was an amazing, I love that book. And Deanna?
I just want to mention Stacy Abrams,
Yes.
because she just amazes me. We just read a mystery by her called While Justice Sleeps.
Wow.
She is not only, an attorney, a politician, an activist who will be the governor.
Come on, that's
Yeah,
Georgia.
she will be the governor. But she is a heck of a writer.
Wonderful.
Yeah, great.
So it's multi-skilled. Well, we thank you for joining us for this episode of Good Grief, Good Gossip, Good God. And we didn't even have time for our good gossip today. But we will give you a good gossip. Read. Thank you. We'll see you next time.